What's up, dudes, lady dudes? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today, we've got the first four revolver structure deck cards, which is pretty hype. They are, in fact, sticking with the rockets slash Borels. I know that was like something I brought up when I talked about the structure deck and what this could mean for rockets. But I think it's pretty safe to say now we're sticking with Borels and Rockets. He's not getting a new archetype in general, like some of the characters end up doing in the Yu-Gi-Oh anime. But yeah, we've got four of the cards. We're gonna go over them today. Let's just jump right into it with the first one, which is actually a fusion, oddly enough. So we're going to start with Borel Furious Dragon. It's a level 8 Dark Dragon fusion monster, 3,000 attack, 2,500 defense. You know, par for the course. Materials are 2 Dark Dragon monsters. It's pretty generic, especially with Guard Dragon stuff. Strudo. I don't know. Is Levianeer a dark? I think Levianeer is a dark. You've got the dragons, the 2 mini Chaos Dragons are the dark one there. So you've got a couple of generic cards that can help you make this. There you go. So both of its effects are hard once per turns. First effect is a quick effect. You can target one monster you control and one card your opponent controls and destroy them. That's pretty dope. That's kind of like it's a Dryden mixed with a Diamond Direwolf. So it's a quick effect pop, but you have to pop something on your own as well. He's a viable target because the second effect is a floating effect that says you can banish this card from the graveyard, then target one Dark Link monster in your graveyard to special summon that monster, but it cannot activate its effects this turn. Totally fine. You get a really powerful disruption while also having a big body on the board. This card kind of reminds me of like Pankratops, how like literally you can just go into battle phase with a 3k beater, and then like main phase 2 you can literally just pop to like itself and something else. So really powerful card. The float is actually really strong as well. Keep in mind like Borel and Borel Sword are Dark Dragon or Dark Link monsters, so you can literally just banish this from grave to revive one of those. Although that only really come up if your opponent's able to out those, and usually you're going into those to win the duel, but still, it's possible. Then we move on to the second card here, which is actually Thorn Borel Dragon or Son Borel Dragon. They're not sure yet. This is just a rough translation. It's a Link 2 Dark Dragon Link effect monster. 1,000 attack, so a little weak. I like seeing Link 2s that are stronger, but this is definitely like a in-between piece. Its arrows are to the left and down. Its materials are any 2 dragon monsters as long as one is a rocket, which is kind of generic, but mostly, specific to rockets. And its effect is a hard once per turn. Its effect reads: you can discard one card, then target one face-up monster on the field, either player's field, just anywhere. You can not special summon Link 2 or lower monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn. Also destroy that monster. Then, if the destroyed monster was a Link monster, you could special summon rocket monsters with different names from your hand or graveyard up to that monster's Link rating, which is actually kind of wild. Okay. So first things first, this can essentially just be discard a card to pop a monster, which is pretty good, like through and through, like no shenanigans. That's a pretty nice little utility card in and of itself. But if you pop himself, you can revive 2 rockets. If you pop a Link monster your opponent controls, Link monsters are pretty running around right now. You get to like special summon rockets from your grave up to that Link monster's rating. You look at something like Sky Strikers. You just target the Shizuku, you pop the Shizuku, you get to revive a rocket. They'll get their Kagari back, but not Kagari, they'll get Ray back and then Ray into Kagari. But as long as you had something to beat over that from there, they can't bring back any more, and you have essentially gotten through that monster loop they get into. And hopefully you can keep them from getting to monsters from there. You look at Thunder Dragons, you can hit the Saryuja. You look at Salamangrates if you can bait the Baylinks already, some way, somehow. Or maybe this just baits the Baylinks in and of itself. You see where I'm getting at. There's just utility for this. You can use this on your own stuff just to extend, or you can use it on your opponent's stuff. If this was a quick effect, it'd be nuts. I understand why it's not a quick effect, though. But, yeah, pretty cool card. I like him as well. I think he's a nice piece. Then we have a spell card here called Rapid Trigger. It's a quick play spell. Looking like a fusion. You can only activate one per turn, and it says this. Fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck by destroying monsters you control as fusion material. The summoned monster cannot attack, except to attack monsters special summoned from the extra deck. Also, it is unaffected by activated effects from any monster special summoned from the extra deck, except its own. Okay, so this card is like an anti-extra deck card, so kind of like an anti-meta card, sort of. You know, most of the meta decks play the extra deck, except for, like, you could argue True Dracos and Subterrors, but other than them, you're going to see a good amount of extra deck play. The downsides. This card can only fusion summon monsters using monsters you control. This cannot destroy cards in your hand, which is kind of a bummer. If you do have, like, a rocket in your hand that you would like to use material for that fusion, it has to be on field for this to really work, which is kind of tough. It's not really an amazing extender. It's not one of these amazing fusion cards we keep getting that can literally fusion from the deck. But it's not bad. It's not searchable either. At least it doesn't seem to be searchable, which is kind of a bummer. So I'm not too keen on this card right now. We'll see if it becomes some kind of searchable, but it's still a quick play fusion, so battle phase shenanigans are definitely possible here. But yeah, it seems just okay to me. The fusion monster itself is better than the way you get to it, because fusion has always been such a minus technique to summon monsters. Right, you use like 2 monsters plus a spell card, using at least three cards to make one fusion, one boss monster. So it's kind of like super minus. But anyway, we get to the last card that we get revealed here, called Topologic Zerovoros, Link 4, Dark Cybers, Link effect monster. It's 3,000 attack. Its links go top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. And its materials are any 2+ effect monsters. Alright, you cannot special summon monsters to an extra monster zone this card points to. I'm pretty sure that just is trying to erase the possibility of like an extra link, sort of, or whatever, so that you couldn't just like point down and point back up. I think makes sense. First effect, gain 200 attack for each banished card. Okay, that's already getting a little risque, because if you just play Pot of Desires in a deck that plays this, that right there is literally 2,000 attack, so this thing would be 5,000 immediately. Or if you play Extravagance, you're looking at, 4,200 wild. This card would get pretty beefy. If another monster is special summoned to a zone a link monster points to, that concludes himself. While this monster is on the field, banish all cards on the field. All right, so it's essentially like the Topologics, like Bomber and Trisbana. If something summons to a zone any link monster points to, not even just his own, your opponent gets summoned to their own link zone without realizing it, and then just banish all cards on the field, including himself, including spells, including traps, including monsters. Everything gets banished. That's kind of nuts. The third effect says, once per turn during the standby phase of the next turn after this card was banished by its own effect, special summon it. Okay. That kind of makes this a little crazy because, well, what doesn't make this crazy is that you get one banish, right? Because then when you bring him back with his own effect, he has to go to a monster zone, in which case you can't trigger him by summoning to your own, like under him, or into one of his zones. Because thinking about where you'd have to place him, you can't use his down arrows because you're in the main monster zones, and you would only even be able to try to use his up arrows, but those point to extra monster zones, and you can't special summon monsters to the extra monster zones this guy points to. You see the dilemma. So he only really wipes the board once. You can definitely just make another link monster and summon to that monster zone that it points to, that one points to, and still just banish the board again. But I think this card's main thing is that, like, you use it for one board clear, and then it comes back as a beat stick, and you don't really banish again from there. From then, you should have simplified the game state so much that you just have, considering he gains the attack of every banished card, that could even be your opponent's banished card too, if they're playing Extravagance or Desires or something. And you could be looking at a 5,000 beat stick after you've simplified the game state, which usually means you win. This card's kind of nuts. I don't think it's overly busted. I think it's pretty good, but not so overly insane that, like, you know, call the press. Things are getting nuts out here. I think it's pretty good. All right, you know, keep it in your pants, everybody. It's pretty good. Overall, though, for rockets slash Borels, I think the Fusion Monster is really solid. I think the Link 2 is like a one of. You probably playing the deck for utility, or unless it's part of like a secret combo. The Fusion is like super mediocre to me, just because it's like a regular Fusion. Like it doesn't do anything crazy like we've seen with some of these new Fusion cards. And this card can definitely be nuts. There are definitely situations this card will just win you the duel. But we'll see. We'll see about that. I don't think this really gives Borel slash Rockets the support they really needed. They need more turbo cards. And I don't feel like any of these turbo cards really do enough. I feel like if you're running a Rocket deck, it's going to be more of like a Guard Dragon like turbo kind of deck that just has like a rocket engine splashed in, and it's not really a super rocket deck. That's probably the best way to run the deck right now, but we'll see where the deck goes in the future. And these cards are kind of cool. Hopefully we get a couple more cards of this structure deck that really help Rockets and Borel, like the Rocket archetype specifically, but we won't know until we get that, but you'll see it for me when it comes. That's pretty much it here, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to see more stuff from me in the future, go and subscribe to the channel. You know, much appreciated if you do. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace on out.